The planet was silent. Too silent. Only the soft wind moved across the empty rocks and broken trees. The human walked slowly, his boots pressing into the dust of a world that was not his own. His name was not important, not yet. What mattered was the feeling in his chest. He was alone, far from home, with only his ship waiting miles behind him. He had landed here for supplies, maybe for water, maybe to map the area. But from the first moment, the air felt heavy, like the planet was hiding something. The ground showed scars of battles long past, black marks on stones, burned soil, and strange holes that looked like they came from energy weapons. He knew this place was not safe, still he kept walking. Then he heard it, a sound, not the sound of machines, not the sound of the wind. It was soft, weak, a cry. He froze, his hand moving quickly to the weapon at his side. He listened again. The cry came a second time, clearer now. It was not human. It was high and trembling, like the sound of a child in pain or fear. His training told him to stop. His orders told him to turn back, but his heart told him to move forward. The human followed the sound through the rocks, moving carefully, his eyes scanning every shadow. Each step was slow, careful, but his chest grew tight with every cry he heard. Soon he reached a small clearing, and there he saw them. Two figures. The first was tall but weak, her body leaning against a broken stone. She had skin that shone faintly under the alien sun, colors shifting like silver mixed with blue. Her eyes were sharp but full of pain. She was holding a weapon, though it was cracked and useless now, and in her arms was a small child. The child looked fragile, its body shaking with every breath. It made that same soft cry, the one he had heard. The mother held the child close, shielding it with her arms, ready to fight even in her weakness. The human felt his throat go dry. He had read about aliens in reports, seen recordings, heard the warnings. They are dangerous. Do not trust them. Do not interfere. Yet here in front of him was no monster, no killer, only a mother and her child scared and hurt. The mother's eyes lifted to him. Her gaze was sharp, cold, and filled with mistrust. She did not know if this human was another enemy. She pressed the child closer, her body tense. The human raised his hand slowly, showing he carried no threat. His weapon stayed at his side. He took one step closer, then stopped, waiting. He could feel the weight of the moment. One wrong move, and she might attack him out of fear. For a long second, no one moved. Only the child's soft cry broke the silence. He looked at the ground around them and saw the truth. Burn marks. Broken machines. Blood, not red but deep violet. They had been attacked. Someone had tried to kill them. His chest tightened. He did not know why, but something inside him could not turn away. He reached into his pack slowly, carefully. He pulled out a small container of water. He placed it on the ground, then stepped back. The alien mother's eyes narrowed. She did not trust him, not yet. But the child stirred, its small hands reaching weakly toward the container. The human gently pushed it closer with his boot, showing no sudden moves, no threat. The mother hesitated. Then slowly she took the container. She sniffed it, checked it, then pressed it to the child's lips. The child drank. The crying stopped, replaced by soft breaths. The human felt relief. A tiny piece of trust had been formed, but then he felt something else. The ground shook. A distant hum filled the air. He turned his head and saw lights in the sky. Red, cold, mechanical lights. Drones. They were scanning the area, searching for survivors. Searching for the alien mother and her child. The human's heartbeat quickened. If the drones found them here, there would be no chance. The mother was too weak, the child too small. They would be taken or killed. He looked back at them. The mother was still holding the child, but her eyes were now fixed on him. She was asking without words, "Will you help us, or leave us to die?" The human made his choice. He moved quickly, gesturing for them to follow. He pointed toward the dark line of rocks leading to a cave nearby. He lowered himself, making his body small, showing them what to do. For a second, the mother did not move. Then, with great effort, she stood, carrying the child. Together they moved toward the cave, each step fast but careful, while the sound of the drones grew louder above. The hook was set. One human, one alien mother, and her child. Their lives now tied together, in danger on a world that wanted them all dead, and this was only the beginning. The cave was dark and narrow. Cold air moved through the stone walls, carrying the smell of dust and smoke. The human led the way, his boots crunching softly on the ground. Behind him, the alien mother followed, holding her weak child close to her chest. They stopped deep inside where shadows hid them from the drones above. Outside, the faint humming sound passed over the rocks, scanning, searching. The human pressed his back against the wall, holding his breath. The mother stood silent, her sharp eyes glowing faintly in the dark, watching him. The child whimpered once, then went quiet again. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, the sound of the drones faded. For now, they were safe. The human let out a slow breath. His hand was still on his weapon, but he did not raise it. His mind was racing. He remembered the rules, the orders he had been given before leaving Earth. Do not trust aliens. Do not make contact. If you see one, report it or remove it. This was not a small order. It was the law, and breaking it could mean prison, or worse. He looked at the alien mother again. Her skin shimmered faintly in the dim light, silver and blue shifting like water. She looked injured, her arm bleeding a faint violet color. Her breaths were heavy. Yet even weak, she stood strong, her body wrapped protectively around the small child. She did not trust him. Not yet. Her gaze was sharp, watching his every move. She was ready to fight if he made a wrong step. The human lowered his weapon and placed it on the ground in front of him. Slowly, carefully, he raised both hands to show he meant no harm. The mother's eyes narrowed, but she did not attack. The human spoke softly, his voice steady but low. "I won't hurt you," he said. "I only want to help." Of course, she could not understand his language. Or maybe she did. He wasn't sure. But she tilted her head, studying him. The child shifted weakly in her arms, its small hand touching her face. The human's chest tightened. He had seen fear before, in soldiers, in civilians, even in himself. But this fear was different. This was the fear of losing a child. He reached into his pack again, slow and careful, pulling out a small light stick. He placed it on the ground between them, turning it on. The soft glow filled the cave, painting the walls with pale blue light. The child blinked at the light and let out a tiny sound. Not fear this time, but curiosity. Its small hand reached toward the glow. The mother looked down at her child, then back at the human. Her eyes softened just a little. It was a start, but the human's mind was heavy. He knew what this meant. If he stayed, if he helped them, he would be breaking every rule he had sworn to follow. If he reported them, soldiers would come, and these two would not survive. This was the choice. Leave them, and stay safe, or help them, and risk everything. The human clenched his fists. The answer came quickly, almost too quickly. He thought of home, of Earth, of the people who raised him, who taught him what it meant to be human. Compassion, mercy. Those words were not just stories. They were part of him. He could not turn away. The human reached into his pack again and pulled out a med kit. He opened it and slowly pushed it toward the mother. He tapped his chest, then pointed at her wound. He was showing her, "I can heal." She stared at him, her eyes hard, suspicious. For a long moment she did nothing. Then finally she lowered herself to the ground, keeping the child close but allowing him near. The human moved carefully, every motion slow. He cleaned the wound, his hand steady. The violet blood stained the cloth, but he did not stop. He wrapped the bandage tight, sealing it with a patch. The mother winced, but she did not pull away. Her gaze stayed locked on him, searching, weighing. When he finished, he leaned back, giving her space. The child looked up at him. Its eyes were bright, almost glowing. For the first time, it made a soft sound. Not a cry, but something else. A sound of peace. The human smiled, but the moment of calm broke quickly. Outside the cave, the ground trembled. A deep, heavy sound rolled across the rocks. Not drones this time. Something bigger. Something alive. The mother's eyes widened. She looked toward the entrance, then back at the human. She knew what was coming. The human picked up his weapon, his jaw set. He moved to the front of the cave, peering into the shadows. The sound grew louder. Heavy footsteps. The crack of metal. A strange growl, not animal, not machine, no something in between. The hunters had arrived, and now the choice was complete. The human had chosen compassion. But that choice would bring danger he could not escape. This was no longer just survival. This was war. The cave grew darker as the sound outside grew louder. Heavy footsteps shook the ground, followed by the sharp hum of machines. The human gripped his weapon tighter, his eyes fixed on the cave's entrance. The alien mother pressed the child against her chest, her breath uneven, her body trembling with both pain and fear. The child let out a soft whimper, and the human quickly raised a hand signaling for silence. His heart pounded in his chest. He could hear the creatures now, not drones but something worse. A faint light slid across the rocks outside, scanning, searching. Then came the growl, low, deep, and metallic. The human swallowed hard. He had faced battles before, but this was different. He was protecting more than himself now. The light moved closer. The footsteps echoed. The hunters were right outside. The human acted fast. He turned to the mother, pointing deeper into the cave. His hand made a sharp motion. Go, hide. She hesitated, eyes locked on him. She did not fully trust him yet. But the child's soft cry decided it for her. She nodded once and moved back into the darkness, holding her child close. The human crouched near the entrance, keeping his weapon low but ready. His breath slowed, his eyes sharp, then silence. For a moment it seemed the danger had passed. The scanning lights faded. The growl grew quiet. But then, a shadow moved across the cave mouth. The human's pulse spiked. A tall shape appeared, armored, carrying a weapon that glowed with energy. Its head turned slowly, scanning. Its eyes burned red. The hunter stepped closer. The human pressed himself against the wall, silent, waiting. His finger tightened on the trigger. But he knew firing now would bring the others. The hunter paused. It tilted its head, listening. The human could hear the machine inside its chest, breathing in strange metallic gas. It sniffed the air. Searching. The child let out a soft sound from deeper in the cave. The hunter's head snapped toward the noise. The human's blood ran cold. He had to act. He grabbed a small flare from his belt. With a flick of his hand, he threw it past the entrance, far into the open field. The flare exploded in bright red light. The hunter spun, growling, and rushed toward the glow. The human didn't waste a second. He turned, motioning quickly for the mother and child. Now, he whispered, though they could not understand. His hand gestures were enough. They moved. Fast. The human led them through the back of the cave, where a narrow tunnel twisted down into the earth. The walls were jagged, sharp, cutting at his arms as he pushed through. Behind him the mother followed, clutching the child tight, but the noise returned. The hunters had not been fooled for long. The growls echoed again, this time from more than one throat. Heavy footsteps shook the ground, and the cave itself seemed to tremble. The human pushed faster, sweat on his face, his breath rough. The tunnel opened into another clearing, this one smaller, with rocks rising like broken teeth. And then, light filled the clearing. Above them, 3 drones descended, red eyes glowing. Their scanners swept across the stone, locking onto movement. The mother gasped, holding her child closer. The human fired. His weapon cracked, a sharp burst of energy. One drone sparked and crashed into the rocks. The other 2 screamed with metallic voices, alarms ringing out. Run! The human shouted, even though they could not understand. His body said it all. The mother obeyed. She moved, stumbling but fast, her child still clutched in her arms. The human stayed behind, firing again. Sparks flew as the drones shot back, beams of light striking the ground near his feet. He rolled behind a rock, firing upward, hitting another drone. It fell, smashing into the dirt. The last drone spun toward the mother, its weapon charging. The human's eyes widened. He threw himself into the open, firing again. His shot struck the drone just before it could release its energy. It exploded in a flash, raining sparks across the clearing. Smoke filled the air. The human coughed, his body aching. But he did not stop. He turned, running after the mother and child. Together, they pushed through another crack in the stone into a narrow valley. The ground sloped downward, leading them toward a river of glowing blue water. The human paused, scanning the skies. For a moment it was quiet again, then he saw them. Far on the cliffs the hunters were gathering. Not one, not 2, but many. Their eyes burned red, their weapons glowing. The chase was not over. It had only begun. The human looked at the mother. She met his gaze, her face pale with fear but also determination. He nodded once. She nodded back. Together, they ran. Behind them the hunters roared, their voices shaking the valley. The human had chosen compassion. But compassion had brought him into the path of death. Still he did not turn back, not now. Not ever. The valley was quiet again, but it was the kind of quiet that did not last. The human knew it. The hunters would not give up. They never gave up. He led the way down the rocky slope, scanning for shelter. The alien mother followed, her child clinging to her chest. Her steps were heavy, her body still weak from wounds, but she did not slow. The child's small eyes glowed faintly in the dark, watching everything with quiet fear. At the bottom of the valley, they found a narrow cave hidden behind thick roots. The human pushed the branches aside and guided them inside. The space was small, enough for them to sit, but not much more. For now, they were safe. The human sat against the wall, his weapon resting on his lap. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. Sweat covered his face, but his eyes stayed sharp, alert. Across from him, the mother crouched with her child. She was still wary of him, her eyes suspicious, her body tense. She had seen what he could do with his weapon. She had seen him kill. She did not know if his kindness was real or a trick, but the child thought differently. The little one crawled forward, curious. Its small hand reached out, glowing faintly in the dark. It touched the human's arm. The human froze. He looked down at the fragile hand resting against his skin. The touch was warm, gentle. The mother hissed softly, pulling the child back. But the human only smiled. Slowly, he opened his pack again and pulled out a small ration bar. He broke it in half and placed the piece carefully on the ground between them. The child's eyes widened. It reached for the food, then looked at its mother. She hesitated, her eyes narrowing, but the hunger in her child's gaze was stronger than her doubt. At last, she let the child take it. The small alien bit into the ration, chewing slowly, its face lighting up with something close to joy. The mother watched, her expression shifting. For the first time, the hardness in her eyes softened. She looked at the human differently now, not as an enemy, but perhaps as something else. The human saw the change. He nodded once, as if to say, "You can trust me." But trust was not built with a single smile. He pointed at her arm, where his bandage was wrapped around the wound. He made a motion, asking if it hurt. She tilted her head, not understanding at first. Then slowly she held out her arm. The human moved closer, careful, slow. He unwrapped the bandage, checking the wound. The violet blood had slowed, but her skin still shimmered weakly with pain. He cleaned it again, this time more gently. She flinched but did not pull away. Her eyes stayed on his face, studying every move. When he finished, she let out a soft sound, not quite a word, but almost like a thank you. The human did not understand her language, but he understood the meaning. For a short time, the cave was quiet. The child ate, the mother rested, and the human sat nearby, watching the entrance, always alert. But peace never lasted long on this world. From outside, a deep rumble shook the earth. Not drones, not hunters on foot. Something larger, something heavier. The human crawled to the entrance and peeked through the branches. His eyes widened. On the ridge above, massive machines were moving. War beasts, half metal, half flesh, their bodies glowing with energy. The hunters were riding them, scanning the valley below. The human's breath caught in his throat. If those things found them, there would be no escape. He turned back to the mother and child. Their eyes were wide, fear written across their faces. The child pressed into her chest, trembling. The human thought fast. He couldn't fight those machines, not alone. They had to stay hidden. He pulled out a small device from his belt, a signal scrambler used to block scanners. It was old, weak, but it might help. He placed it at the cave entrance, pressing it against the stone. A faint hum filled the air as it activated. The mother tilted her head, curious. The human tapped the device, then pointed upward. He was telling her, "This will hide us." She studied him again. And then, for the first time, she nodded. A clear nod. Trust had been earned. The hunters passed overhead, their machines roaring, their lights cutting through the valley. But they did not see the cave. They did not hear the hum. The mother looked at the human. Her eyes no longer hard, but filled with something else. Respect. The child, finished with the ration, crawled toward him again and placed its small hand on his leg. This time, the mother did not pull the child away. The human smiled, his heart heavy but strong. For the first time since landing on this cursed planet, he did not feel completely alone. But deep inside, he knew the truth. This bond, this fragile trust would be tested again, and the hunters were not far. The night was heavy, filled with the smell of smoke and metal. In the hidden cave, the human sat against the wall, weapon in hand, his eyes fixed on the narrow entrance. The alien mother held her child close, both wrapped in silence. The faint hum of the scrambler still filled the air, hiding them from scanners. But the human knew it was only a matter of time. The hunters were clever. They had machines, weapons, beasts of war. They would search every valley, every rock, until nothing was left alive. And when they came, this cave would be a trap, not a shelter. The child shifted in the mother's arms, letting out a soft sound. The human looked at the small creature and felt a sharp pull in his chest. Compassion had brought him here, and now it tied him to them. He could not let them die. The ground shook, the human stiffened. Outside voices echoed, harsh, guttural, mechanical. Shadows moved across the rocks. He could hear claws scraping stone, engines growling, weapons charging. The hunters had found them. The mother's eyes widened. She pressed her child tighter against her chest, her breathing quick and shallow. The human raised his weapon, his jaw tight. The first blast came without warning. A beam of energy ripped into the cave wall, spraying stone and dust. The scrambler shattered, sparks flying. The hiding place was gone. The hunters roared. The human fired back instantly, his weapon glowing in the dark. The shot struck the first hunter, throwing it back into the rocks. Its armored body sparked, twitching as it fell, but more followed. 3, 4, 5 shapes stormed into the cave mouth, weapons raised, eyes burning red. Behind them, the growls of war beasts shook the valley. The human shouted, "Go!" and pointed deeper into the cave. The mother hesitated only a moment before she turned, running with her child. The human stood his ground. Shots filled the cave, beams of red light slicing the air. He rolled to the side, firing back. 2 hunters dropped, sparks bursting from their armor. But one beam grazed his shoulder, burning through fabric and skin. He bit back the pain. The mother's scream echoed from the tunnel. The child cried out, its voice sharp with terror. The human's blood boiled. He would not let them be taken. He grabbed a grenade from his belt, pulled the pin, and threw it. The explosion shook the cave, fire bursting across stone. The hunters staggered, blinded for a moment. The human ran. He caught up with the mother in the narrow passage, his weapon ready. The tunnel twisted, opening into a larger chamber. But this chamber was no safer. The roof had cracks, and from above claws dug through stone. Hunters were breaking in from every side. The mother pressed her child behind her, her body glowing faintly with desperate strength. She raised her broken weapon, but it was useless. The human stepped forward. "Stay behind me." The hunters dropped into the chamber. Tall, armored, weapons glowing, their red eyes locked on the mother and child. The human fired without pause. His shots struck true, dropping one, then another. But there were too many. A beam cut past his face, another slammed into the rock near his head. Dust rained down, filling his lungs. He coughed, firing again, moving, never still. One hunter charged, swinging a blade of light. The human ducked, drove his knife upward, and the blade pierced armor. The hunter fell with a metallic scream. But the human was slowing. His shoulder burned. His chest ached. Every shot felt heavier. The mother saw it. Her eyes blazed with something fierce. She placed the child behind a stone and stepped forward, her weak hands glowing faintly. Her voice rose, strange, alien, powerful. The sound shook the chamber. The hunters paused. For a moment, even they seemed uncertain. The human glanced back, stunned. The mother was calling on something, a power hidden deep within her. But before it could build, one hunter fired. The shot struck her side. She fell, crying out, her body trembling. The child screamed. The human's vision blurred with rage. He charged, firing until his weapon burned hot, until sparks burst from the barrel. He slammed into the last hunter, knocking it down, stabbing until it no longer moved. Then silence. The chamber was filled with smoke and broken bodies. The human dropped to one knee, his chest heaving. His weapon clattered to the ground. He turned to the mother. She lay on the ground, weak, blood shimmering violet across her side. The child crawled to her, crying. The human knelt beside them. He pressed a hand against her wound, his voice low. "Stay with me. Don't give up." Her eyes flickered open. She looked at him, pain and gratitude mixed in her gaze. She touched his hand, weak but steady. For the first time, she whispered words in her own tongue. He did not understand them, but he knew their meaning. "Thank you." The child clung to both of them, trembling. The human raised his head, listening. Outside, more footsteps echoed. The hunters were not finished. More would come. He tightened his grip on his weapon. His body shook, his blood burned, but he would not stop, not while they still lived. The attack was only the beginning. The chamber was filled with smoke and silence, but it was the silence before a storm. The human knew it. His chest rose and fell with hard breaths. His body hurt, his shoulder burned, but his grip on the weapon did not shake. The alien mother lay against the stone, weak and bleeding. The child pressed close to her, tiny hands clutching her arm. Her glowing eyes met the human's, pleading without words. Then the ground shook. The sound came again. Heavy steps, louder this time. The air vibrated with the growl of machines. The hunters were not retreating. They were regrouping. Stronger ones were coming. The human's jaw tightened. He looked at the mother and child, then back at the cave entrance. There was no time to run. The hunters stormed in. Armored bodies filled the chamber, weapons glowing red. Behind them, war beasts growled, their metal claws scraping the stone floor. Their eyes burned with rage. The human stood tall, weapon raised. "Come then," he whispered, though they could not understand. The first blast lit the chamber. The human rolled, fired back, his shot striking one hunter in the chest. It collapsed, sparks sprang. Another hunter charged, swinging its glowing blade. The human ducked, kicked its legs, and fired into its face. But more came. He fought like a storm, every move sharp, every shot fast. He fired until his weapon overheated, then switched to his knife. He stabbed, slashed, dodged, his body moving on pure instinct. The mother watched, her chest heaving, her hand pressed to her wound. The child cried out, but she held it close, whispering comfort even as fear filled her heart. The human was relentless. He fought not for orders, not for victory, but for them. For the mother. For the child, blood covered his arm. His breath grew ragged, but he did not stop. A hunter struck his side, burning deep into his armor. He staggered, pain exploding through his ribs. He dropped to one knee but pushed himself up again, roaring as he drove his knife into the attacker's throat. The war beasts leapt forward. One struck him, claws raking across his back. He slammed into the wall, vision spinning. But as the beast lunged again, he grabbed its jaw and fired into its throat. The beast collapsed with a metallic scream. The human fell to one knee again, blood dripping from his mouth. His vision blurred. The world tilted. The mother's voice called out, a sharp, desperate cry in her alien tongue. The human forced himself up. His body screamed in pain, but his will was stronger. He charged forward, swinging his knife, firing his last rounds. One hunter fell, then another. But there were too many. The human stumbled, his legs weak. His chest burned. He knew he could not hold much longer. Then he saw it, a war beast, larger than the rest, charging straight for the mother and child. His heart froze. Without thought, he ran. He threw himself between the beast and them, raising his arms. The beast slammed into him, claws piercing his side. He cried out but held firm, driving his blade into its chest again and again. Sparks burst. The beast roared, then collapsed, dragging him down with it. The human fell to the ground, blood pouring from his wounds. His weapon slipped from his hand. His vision dimmed, but he turned his head. The mother and child were alive. The beast had not reached them. The child crawled to him, small hands touching his chest, glowing faintly. Tears filled its eyes. The mother dragged herself closer, her face pale with pain but burning with determination. She pressed her hand against his wound, her eyes glowing brighter. Energy flowed from her, a strange warmth spreading into his body. He gasped, feeling life pull at him again, but she was weak. Too weak. Healing him drained what little strength she had left. No, the human whispered, though she could not understand. He shook his head, pushing her hand away. His voice was rough, broken. Save it, for the child. Her eyes widened, then filled with tears. She understood. The chamber shook again. More hunters were coming. The fight was not finished. The human forced himself up one last time. He staggered to his feet, weapon shaking in his bloody hands. He looked at the mother and child. "Run," he said. His voice was soft but firm. He pointed to the far tunnel where faint light glowed. "Go." The mother hesitated, tears shining in her eyes. The child clung to her. "Go," he shouted. She obeyed. With her last strength, she lifted the child and fled into the tunnel. The human turned back to the entrance. His body swayed, his legs weak. The hunters were coming, shadows filling the chamber. He raised his weapon, a broken smile on his face. "If this is the end," he whispered, "then it was worth it," and he charged. The chamber burned with fire and smoke. The human's body moved like a shadow, striking, shooting, bleeding. Every breath was heavy, every step a fight. But he did not stop. Not while the mother and child were still alive. The hunters poured into the cave, their red eyes glowing, their weapons cutting through the dark. The human met them head-on, his weapon blazing, his knife flashing. His body was broken, but his will was unshakable. Each shot was slower than the last. Each swing of his blade drained more strength. But for every strike he gave, another hunter fell. The floor was littered with broken armor, sparking machines, and blood both violet and red. At last, his weapon clicked empty. No more energy left, the human dropped it. He staggered, his vision swimming. His knife was all he had now. The hunters surrounded him. One stepped forward, raising a glowing blade. The human tightened his grip on the knife. His heart thundered. He knew this was the end. But before the blade fell, a sound filled the chamber. A cry. The child's cry. From the far tunnel, the alien mother and her child stood in the glow of faint light. She was weak, her body trembling, but her eyes blazed with fire. She raised her hand and light burst from her skin. Not weak this time, but strong, pure, radiant. The hunters froze. The chamber shook as her power filled the air. Stones cracked, machines sparked, and the hunters staggered, their eyes flickering. The light grew brighter, spreading across the walls like fire. The human fell to one knee, shielding his eyes. He had never seen such power. The mother's voice rose, sharp and powerful, speaking in her alien tongue. The words echoed like thunder, filled with rage and grief. The hunters howled, stumbling back. Their weapons sputtered, their machines collapsed. One by one they fell, consumed by the burning light. When the glow faded, silence returned. The hunters were gone. The chamber was broken, but it was theirs again. The mother collapsed to the ground, drained. The child rushed to her side, crying softly. The human forced himself up, his legs weak. He stumbled toward them, blood dripping from his wounds. He dropped beside the mother, his breathing shallow. Her eyes opened slowly. She looked at him, tears in her glowing gaze. She reached out, touching his face with her trembling hand. "You saved us," she whispered in her tongue. He did not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. He smiled faintly. "No," he whispered back. "You saved me." The child pressed its small hand against his chest, glowing faintly. Warmth spread through him, soft and gentle. It was not enough to heal him, not fully, but enough to keep him alive a little longer. The human's vision blurred. He looked at them one last time. The mother and her child alive, safe. That was enough. But then something unexpected happened. The mother leaned close, her forehead touching his. Her voice was soft, broken, but filled with promise. She spoke words he could not understand, yet he felt them deep inside his heart. Words of gratitude. Words of bond. He had chosen compassion, and in that choice he had earned not only trust but family. Outside, the night grew quiet. The hunters were gone. For now, the valley was safe. The mother lifted the child into her arms, then looked back at the human. Her eyes said everything. "We will not forget you. Your fight, your sacrifice will live with us." The human closed his eyes, leaning against the stone, his body finally giving in to rest. Time passed. When he woke again, the sun was rising over the valley. The air was fresh, clean. He was still alive. His wounds burned, but they were wrapped in alien cloth, glowing faintly with energy. The mother sat nearby, watching him. The child was asleep in her arms, safe and warm. For the first time, she spoke words he could understand. Her voice was rough, her accent strange, but the meaning was clear. "Human, friend." The human's heart swelled. He tried to speak, but his throat was dry. All he managed was a small smile. The journey was not over. The hunters would return. The war was not finished, but something new had begun here, something stronger than war. A bond, one human, one alien mother, one child. Together, they had survived. Together, they had proved that compassion was stronger than fear, stronger than hate, and perhaps, just perhaps, this was the first step toward peace between two worlds. As the sun rose higher, the human stood slowly, his body weak but his spirit unbroken. He looked at the mother and child, then at the sky. He whispered softly, "We'll make it. I promise." And for the first time, the alien mother smiled. The child stirred, opening its bright eyes. It reached out with its tiny hand, touching the human's fingers. Hope was born in that touch. The human had chosen compassion, and that choice had changed everything.